evening. How are you? Great. Thanks for joining us on Family Matters. Tonight we have a great conversation that is upcoming, and you want to tune in to get a glimpse of 2 or 3 things and actually get to understand. Tonight we're talking about child abuse and child neglect. Some of you perhaps do not know the way you're handling your kid is actually neglect or abuse, and that is the conversation we're talking about tonight on Channel 1 and on Family Matters. Therefore, you can join in this conversation using the hashtag Family Matters on Twitter, my Twitter handle JCurier, and of course at KBC Channel 1, which is our official Twitter handle. Talk to us also on our SMS line 20511, which is our SMS line, and of course be sure to tell us who you are and where you're watching us from. But then the conversation is ongoing on Family Matters. People really are eager to get into this conversation of child abuse and child neglect. Let's get to know what really child abuse is, what child neglect is, and perhaps from that perspective we can be able to move on a front line. Let me introduce my panel tonight. It's a rich panel for that matter. I'm joined by Elizabeth Musyoki, a case study, and of course working at the University of Nairobi. Yes. Definitely. Agri Otieno.
Yes.
And an expert actually dealing with in an organization that deals with child abuse and child neglect. You'll be telling us about that later. Jack Nyamwaya and the wife Terry Nyamwaya, who are parents really, and of course in this panel as parents, young parents, I believe.
No.
So this conversation, not really?
No, much older.
Much older?
Yes.
How old is your son?
My eldest is 24.
Jesus, how did you make it so young?
It's all because we married early.
Oh, you did?
Yes, we did. In fact, we actually married at the same age my son right now is.
Wow. We shall have a conversation later. That is interesting. Well, then perhaps to pick up this conversation, Agri, child abuse, child neglect, what really constitutes the charge or the offense of child abuse, and what really is child neglect?
Yeah. First of all, child abuse is maltreatment that constitutes physical violence or emotional violence, sexual exploitation, or any other exploitation that is detrimental to the well-being of a child.
Yeah.
But now neglect is where a child is not given the essential needs that they need for them to grow as a child, to grow in terms of their health, in terms of their development, in terms of their education. So when those essential needs are not catered for, then we say that neglect has happened. But abuse is when physical, sexual, or emotional well-being of the child is interfered with.
Yeah. This interference with sexual, physical, emotional thing,
Yes.
what is it?
Yeah, actually we can talk about different forms of abuses for us to understand it better. So one is physical abuse, and this one basically involves bodily injury of the child that is not accidental.
Like the case we saw the other day of a woman who tortured the daughter for bedwetting.
Yes.
That is physical.
That is physical abuse, and it happens all the time, including even just slapping your child and beating your child, corporal punishment.
You can't discipline your kid now?
Yeah.
You can't?
You can abuse your child.
By disciplining them?
So to what extent? You know,
what about the spanking? Get your act together. Is
the
it
moment that
abuse?
You are injuring your child, that is an abuse.
Causing
that is
an injury.
Causing an injury.
Okay.
That is intended, intentional, which is not accidental. Then emotional abuse, and most of them happens at the family level. Sometimes we usually think that abuses of children are things that are foreign, that happens outside there, but they happen right inside the house. Then we also have sexual abuse that is also very, very common. Not only outside our family environment, but also inside the houses. And we've had so many cases happening of children being sexually exploited. And of course, emotional. So that one that you interfere with the child psychologically. For example, just insulting your child, sometimes calling a child you look like a cow, something like that. So it's emotional abuse that is you are meting out your child.
All right. Fantastic. And of course, we'll be getting to, there's a thin line between intentional and accident when you talked about the physical abuse.
Yes.
And of course, we'll be getting to that, how you're able to iron out the difference between physical, the intentional one and the accident. But then, Elizabeth, to come to your case as our case study here, and of course, we thank God for you that you've been able to overcome all those challenges and of course, become who you are today. What exactly happened to Elizabeth?
I would say I've been exposed to all kinds of abuse. So let me share my story in a brief. My parents died when I was 4 years of age. They were fighting and so they were taken to the hospital. That's the last I saw them.
They fought, they were taken to hospital?
They fought, my mom got hurt, then they were taken to the hospital, and my
Both of them?
dad, yes, and my dad accompanied him.
Yeah.
So that was the last I saw of them. the door was locked and I was left outside playing with other kids. I think it was sometimes in the afternoon. And so no one bothered where I was. The door is locked with a padlock. And so when it's nightfall, everyone went to their homes.
Yeah, and you have to go back home.
Yes, and so I just sat outside our door waiting for them to come back.
Yeah.
And then they didn't come back, and I think I dozed off and fell asleep. And I woke up to this very sharp and gruesome pain. And there was this grown-up man raping the 4-year-old me. I screamed and I was crying. I was
Middle
in
of the
blood.
night. This man creeps in. You hear helpless, and of course, the door is not open, so you have to sleep outside.
And he's
But
not
then
a
there's this man who takes
stranger.
advantage of you.
Yes,
As
and
you're
he's
now
not a
vulnerable.
stranger. He lives in the estate.
It's somebody you knew.
Yeah. Not really known in a personal way, the way you just...
The way you
it's
see
a familiar
people around,
face.
you know, your neighbors.
Yes. And so that is when my neighbors remember they had taken my parents to the hospital. They also remember I was left outside, and so they called the police because now it has to become a police case and all that. And so...
So when you screamed, your neighbors came to your rescue.
They tried.
They tried.
Because
the damage had already been done.
the damage had already been done. And so I go to the police station and things get worse. I am 4 years of age, taken to a police station, and none of them sees me as a child. So I just stay in the cell and wait for them to figure out what they'll do for me the next day. Then they figure out there's no parents.
The whole night?
Yes. So my parents are not there, so they decide we will look for them tomorrow.
Where are you this time? Are you getting comfort in the cell,
There
or you're
is
just
zero comfort.
somewhere there?
It's just a cell with many other prisoners. I had not eaten dinner.
What? They treating you like a suspect?
Yeah. So I wait. And then the next day, they try and look for my parents, and someone said they died in the hospital. And how I get to hear that my parents died, one of the policemen just harshly says in Kiswahili, I hear her parents were fighting and they killed each other. So the first time I hear my parents died. I think my mom really got hurt and she didn't make it to the hospital. And my dad, from the shock of it, he passed on to yes. So I'm still 4 years of age. It's not a year, it's just I think the next day, a few hours afterwards. And so I'm there and they have decided maybe we should take her to the hospital or not. Eventually I didn't end up in a hospital. I stayed there while they're thinking what to do with me. They're thinking maybe we should try and locate her relatives and all that. None of my relatives came forth. So day 1, they're looking for someone, no one comes. Day 2, no one comes. Day 3, no one comes. Then the policemen figure I'm such a burden. They need to take me somewhere before they sort out my issues.
So nobody at this time is thinking about the defilement that you went through. They're thinking of how to bury you, or bury your case so that it is
The
forgotten.
fact that I have been defiled is not an issue to them. The big issue right now is that I need to be out of that police station, and so they need to get a solution for that, because me in a police station is a burden to them. So we've totally forgotten the rape issue. We're just dealing with where I'm supposed to go, and so they're looking for someone to either come take me or where they would put me as a temporary solution. And so they settled to taking me to approved school. That is the juvenile remand home in Eldoret. And so I go to juvenile, and it just happened that since that afternoon when my parents went to the hospital until now I'm in juvenile, everything has changed. Everyone is hostile towards me. No adult is caring or
Because
loving.
juveniles are schools for indisciplined kids.
Yeah, I'm 4 years of age in juvenile. We're waking up at 5 to do chores. I don't even know how to clean. You are thoroughly beaten for wetting the bed. You have to carry big buckets of water, and also you're beaten because you're not carrying
Even
off the
correctional
chores
facilities are still abusing children.
how you're supposed to do it. There's 0 beddings. And then in the 90s, they were really bad because we used to sleep on 3 logs of wood piled together really neatly with no mattress, just blankets. Some people were sleeping on the floors. At least those who were on the floors would get some thin mattresses to share. They've just given me one long green khaki dress. I don't know how to shower. I am 4 years old age.
Hold it there. I mean, your story is a story we need to continue with later. And of course, a very sad story, really. But then let me bring in Jack and Terry as parents and hold the microphone to you, so that we're able to. Yeah, I will start with you, Jack. As a parent, and of course, you've been living in a community of people and you've been able to bring up your kids. One, perhaps it's easier for you to tell us, how did you bring up your kids? Of course, now your first son being at the age of 24, in an environment devious of this harassment or abuse or neglect cases?
From our experience, what we've actually come in, over time, when we look at how the children have turned out, is that parents have to be involved. And despite the fact that things are changing so fast right now, you still have to have a direct involvement with your children. Yeah. And that means that even if you go to work or you're doing your business, your child still is your primary concern, because you can imagine you've gone out throughout the whole day, and then you come back in the evening, or you get a phone call, God forbid, at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon that you have to go to hospital because of something has happened. Yeah. That means, everything stops, because your child is, like the Bible says, the child are a heritage.
For a father like you, it is easy, and particularly that's how we've been fashioned in this generation. It's easier to leave the burden to the mother, so when you just come and see your kid smiling, that's just that you got to bed and not even bothered.
I disagree. She did not get the child alone. I was involved. So
it's a new perspective.
So that means I also have to roll up my sleeves and get involved with bringing up those children. Because at the end of the day, they are a reflection on how we bring them up.
All right.
And if we don't get involved, then they will turn out to be what society shapes them to be.
All right. Terry, mothers are directly involved with children. And presently being in their life, how did you ensure that as a mother, you are cushioning yourself or even your children from this aspect of abuse or even neglect? And sometimes you're a career woman, you have to be at work. How are you able to cushion your children against these vices?
For me, I will just say I was fortunate enough because I was directly involved in the bringing up of the children, because we usually used to live with them in the morning going to school. So the 4 of them, we have 4 children. Yeah. And in the evening, because I purposely chose a school near where I work for the purpose of getting to be there.
You purposely chose a school near where you work?
Yes.
So at times in lunchtime you dash in and see how your children did?
Not necessarily so, but more so for probably school meetings, you know. And then also it would make it easier for me transport-wise, you know. They would walk from school to my place of work, and then from there we go home. Yeah. So for almost 6-7 years, you know, from the firstborn, that time he was about class 4, and the youngest was in nursery school until the eldest finished class 8.
You know, so working with them for 7 years, it tells you the youngest had to transition to about class 4, 5, Apple?
Yes. And that involvement, you know, because you are with them, you go to get into the matatu with them, go home, you are involved with them, homework and everything. So basically, I got to know how they are.
Did it help you understand how your kids are reacting to different things and understand their personal lives?
It did, so much so, because when I look now how they have turned out to be, I would say I'm a proud mother. Yeah. I feel very good. That doesn't mean that the father was not involved. He was there. But because of his work, where he worked and where I worked, I was the one who was more involved.
Were you comfortable with his involvement? The women were not really very comfortable when the father is so close with the children.
One thing I would say, I thank God for my husband, is because he has this gift with children. Yes. In fact, when they were babies and when I was breastfeeding, I would just finish breastfeeding and give the children to him, and he will put them to sleep. I've also seen how he handles our nephews and nieces and even the younger children. Yeah. And they tend to look up to him, you know. And with that, I'm comfortable. I can't say that I'll be scared that he will abuse them in one way or the other. Yeah. In fact, if anything, he influences and he encourages them, which is very good.
Jack, umejengewa CV, unafaa kitu kidogo. Agree. I mean, looking at the 2010 report, the people behind the abuse and neglect of children, trusted allies, like parents, friends, or even people they call close, or somebody even trusted them, you know, on. Why is it so? And particularly if you were to look at the whole trend, where are we headed as a society if a person you can trust your kid with is the one that is going to abuse a child? Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention out, especially from Elizabeth's story, marriage as a unit is under threat also. And because of this, parents are going through a lot of stress, a lot of issues at the family level that leads to domestic violence. And we've had cases even in the media where a man and a wife, they fight, and then they end up venting off their stress to children, and end up physically abusing the children, and sometimes even sexually abusing and emotionally abusing their children too. So that is something that is also happening at a very, very high rate. And again, the issue of traditional African society, where you know Agri is staying in Nairobi, I'm bringing on board relatives from all over. Most of the time, my children will end up trusting these relatives, and then they end up abusing these children. You know, most of the time, those people who perpetrate abuse of children are people who are very known to the children. So that one is in a very, very high trend. So it also shows the aspect of value system. There's a breakdown of value system within our communities. And again, if you go back to Elizabeth's story, she was outside there. Nobody was responding. In the past, you'll find that a child not only belonged to the parents, but also belonged to the whole community.
It's a societal moral rot.
So you can see she was there. Nobody was even bothered to see why is this child outside. There was those who took her parents to the hospital, but there are those who remained behind, but they never bothered. Somebody was there defiling her. She was screaming. Nobody came to attention. They look at the system also, child protection system as a whole. She was taken to the police. Where was she taken to? To the cells.
To a cell.
And we know that police stations are supposed to have child protection units, but at the same time, we know that they are not fully equipped. And probably they also have their challenges in terms of equipping these child protection units. But you see that even in terms of protecting the children, the service provider, the duty bearers that we have, they're also challenged. And because of that, then, you know, children are just on their own.
All right, let me ask you very quickly, because I mean, you've been in these cases and been looking at them. As the years go by, looking at the former society or the society that was there, or mothers or fathers, as we even grow now to become parents and stuff like that, do you feel that slowly there's a disconnect between the parents and the children?
There is, and at some point somebody mentioned here, to the extent that even men are delegating their responsibilities, parental responsibilities, either to the wife, and the wife is also pressured. We have working women nowadays, so very early in the morning they'll be going to work, coming back, and they are tired like anybody else. But at the same time, you have to take care of your children. So you see that when both parents are out of the home, who is now taking care of the children? Probably they are on their own, or you are taking your children to institutions. And that is why even abuse at institutional level are also at a very, very high rate. We've seen children being abused at daycare centers. We've had cases of children being abused in schools. We've had cases being abused even in hospitals. We've had cases of children being sexually exploited in institutions that are supposed to protect children. So there's that breakdown at the family, and also breakdown at the community child protection systems, and also values of people who are supposed to be taking care of their children.
Elizabeth, let me take you back to the story that you're giving us. And before we even get to the juvenile, this man that is defiling young Elizabeth, and then she cries or screams, and then the neighbors come. What do they do with this defiler?
Some tried to restrain him.
Restrain?
Yeah. He had already finished with me. I was bleeding, lying there, hopeless. So some tried to call the police. So I think the best they did was call the police. And it got worse. When he went to the police station, he was released the same night. So I was the one who remained in the cell waiting for them to sort me out. He went back home. And this situation remained this way for a long time until the person who came to rescue me decided to follow it up. That's how now it became a police case. And
these people who are coming to rescue it doesn't matter to them whether it's a police case or not?
Not at all.
All right. The juvenile school, here you are, you're being forced to adapt to a life you're not used to. You don't even know how to wash yourself before 4 years old. You're sleeping in a very uncomfortable environment. So what happens to you?
Well, as young as I was, I started hating people. It doesn't really look, okay, at that age I wouldn't tell it's hate, but I just didn't want to
resentment.
be near anyone. I would call myself up in a corner and just cry because everything I did was wrong. We were waking up at 5. I'm still sleepy at 5, so I get beaten for that. We have to do chores at 5. I do not know how to do the chores, so I get beaten for it. We have to struggle for food. I am 4 years old, and there's some 19, 20-year-old kids there who are supposed to be below 18. We're struggling for the same, scrambling for the same food. I will definitely miss out. And so I just got to a point where I hated everything, including God. I would not want to hear anyone talk to me. All I wanted to do was just keep to myself and cry. That became like my comfort. Because whatever it is I did, everything I did, just living up a normal life was wrong. It was a mistake.
Was there anybody willing to walk with you? This girl, troubled, crying in the corner, of this juvenile school, always crying, thinking, what is happening to me? Was there any person that would walk to you and ask you what you're going through, or try to walk with you in this bitter part of life that you're walking through?
No one tried. If anything, crying was a mistake. Apparently in Africa, kids are not supposed to cry. Even when parents discipline their kids, they get beaten more if they cry.
They used to tell us it is indiscipline they are beating, not us.
Yes, so I would even actually be beaten for crying. So I even, identified those corners and cracks where no one would see you and crying because, like literally, everything I did was just a mistake.
And deep inside you're still hurting and nobody wants to understand you.
All this time I'm trying to figure out, what did I do wrong? I am not getting the whole point. The only aspect of death I understand is the fact that I no longer see my parents, but I have no idea what it is I have done that I no longer see them. You're still a kid. It doesn't really hit you that they will never be there and all that. So I'm still wondering, when are they coming for me? Don't they know that this is harsh? Why don't these adults understand me? I am 4 years of age. Like if you would walk in, you would literally tell that's the smallest kid here.
Yes.
I am not understanding adults. I don't want to see people because now everyone is just like an animal. And I am so bitter and so mad, and I was just a lost case.
Yeah.
Until this God-sent evangelist called Dr. Muli came in one day. He has a children's home. He takes care of street children. And he actually noticed there's a very young child here. I would pee on myself every day. Of course, I don't know how to shower, so I would skip showers. You get one, in general, you get one uniform. I don't remember when we used to wash them. I don't remember whether it was weekly or monthly, but I do not know how to do laundry, so mine never got washed. And so he looks at me and is dirty and smelling as I was.
All right.
He takes me up and lifts me up and holds me to his chest.
We'll talk about Dr. Muli and, of course, the process of working with Dr. Muli. But very quickly, let me bring in Terry and Jack very quickly. And let's talk about child, the bringing up of a kid, particularly in a situation where both of you are a career man and a career woman, although Terry tells us there was this at this point. So was there a point at which you had, let's say, a house girl that you would leave your kids with at some point? Because, you're not going to school every other day, that you have to go with them to work.
Well, since our children were born, we've always had a house girl. We've just recently let go of our house girl who has been with us for the last 16 years.
What were you doing with her?
Basically, what we do is that we don't look at her as a house girl. We took her in as like a member of our family. And she brought up our lastborn, because our lastborn was 3 months.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, our lastborn has not seen any other maid, known any other maid. That's the caregiver who has been there with her all those years. So but then we didn't just leave the role for her to bring up the child. We were also still involved with our children, because they are our children. And my wife and I have always been hands-on with our children. At this time and age, with all the technology available, we even have a WhatsApp group for the family. We keep in touch with our children. We get to know, we get involved with what they're doing. It's not monitoring what they are up to, but be involved in their lives. Our son now, who's in university, who swims for the university, we go for the swimming gala. We actually have to be in attendance.
Come on, man, you have a kid in university.
Yes.
How did you manage to keep that young?
The thing is that we never stressed each other, did we?
Oh, yeah?
And the thing is also being friends with your children,
Yeah.
and just bringing them up and showing them, but by the time they reach the age of 18, they'll be dealing with the government
All right.
and not us.
All right.
Yeah.
Give it to Terry very quickly, Terry. The line of questioning, I mean, you want to know what is going through the mind of your kid, you know, and you want to know what they have been doing when you were away. So what line of questioning did you apply so that you don't sound too inquisitive or even invading into private space?
Okay, a mother always has a way with the children.
What is this way? Perhaps there's somebody out there who needs to know what this way is.
You know, as the child is growing, you know, and you're involved in their formative years, you get to know a certain way of how they do things.
Yeah.
Okay, even in school, how they do things, because even the teacher will know. Because you'll always know a bright child when they start, you know, maybe going down academically, activity-wise, extracurricular in school. Then you'll notice there's something missing. In this case, I would just say there was a time when their father was not very much around.
Yeah.
In their formative years, in their primary years. It was a very difficult time for all of us, but more so for me, the pressure was there, but I decided to hold my head up high for the sake of, to put the family together and even to make sure that these children know that it is fine, you know, despite. Because you don't want to show the children that you're feeling, you're missing out on their father's presence, you know. He was also going through his own issues. But when we were together, we showed them we were together, you know, the children, so that they recognize and respect their father and love him for who he is.
Yeah.
Other things, that's between the two of you. But for as long as they see him around, they knew, yes, we'd go to him and get everything.
I mean,
that we
you're a
needed.
lovely couple. Do you ever have differences anyway?
We do. We do.
Hold it there. Let's take a short breather. We'll be coming back, and of course, we'll be continuing with the second part of this particular interview. And particularly, we want to look at the issue of policy, particularly for you, Agri. These cases, are they on rise, one? And secondly, whether there's enough legislation around, you know, protecting children. And of course, Elizabeth will be giving us her story and of course what she had to go through. But on the perspective of parents, there's too much to talk about. I mean, because it boils down to parents, I agree. It does, definitely. Let me hand you back to Catherine Achenga, who is on standby with Moniz. Surely this is an interesting conversation. And I'm sure, Catherine Achenga, there's a lesson or two for you.
Of course, a very moving story there, just trying, you know, to understand and appreciate some of the things that our children go through that we actually don't think about as parents.
Yeah.
Well, we will be continuing that conversation with you a little bit later, John, so do continue chatting up your guests. I do hope we will continue to enjoy the interview as we are so far. All right, let's now focus on other stories of the day, and we focus on what's happening across the country. And we will be getting to the county news in just a bit, but first a little bit of politics, where the Deputy President, William Ruto, has yet again maintained that dissolving all Jubilee affiliate parties into one outfit remains inevitable. According to the Deputy President, the move remains the best bet yet in uniting the country. The Jubilee leadership expressed confidence in the outcome of the 2017 general elections, even as Wiper's party's top decision-making organ charged that Kalonzo Musyoka's name must be in the presidential ballot next year.
The venue was Kapsabet Boys High School grounds in Nandi County, a Thanksgiving organized to celebrate the appointments of Cabinet Secretary Willie Bate and Principal Secretary Andrew Taymor into the Cabinet. And it is here that the Deputy President made clear all intentions to form a major political outfit before 2017 general elections. Ruto charged that there is no going back on plans to fold all parties affiliated to Jubilee.
Sisi kama Jubilee tumeamua na haturudi nyuma ya kwamba tunataka Kenya hii iunganike iwe Kenya moja. Kuna watu wengi walifanya kuendesha siasa sao kwa misingi ya kugawanya watu na ukabila na mambo haya mengine.
This is said like he has constantly maintained was the only way to bring the country together.
Nataka niwahakikishie, hatuwezi kukubali tena Kenya irudishwe nyuma katika siasa ya zamani, siasa duni ya kugawanya watu, nyinyi ni wa kabila hii na kabila ile, watu wa sehemu hii na sehemu ile. Hiyo siasa haitawezekana tena katika karne hii ya 21. And we are determined.
Jubilee leaders insist that the soon-to-be launched outfit will carry the day in 2017.
And they better prepare. Kwa sababu the competition 2017 is between the team of Jubilee and the group of God. There is a big difference between a team and a group.
We want to tell them, you will wait in the Supreme Court, we will win straight and square, and we will not need the intervention of the Supreme Court. So hiyo Supreme Court yao wafanye siasa, lakini sisi tutamaliza na raia, hatutakuwa na haja ya kwenda Supreme Court.
The Jubilee luminaries expressed confidence even as Kalonzo Musyoka's Wiper Party maintained that the former vice president must gun for presidency in 2017. Led by Party Secretary General Hassan Omar, the party's top decision-making organ said Kalonzo must fly code flag.
Sisi Wiper, wakati huu mwaka wa 2017 tutakuwa na mgombea wa kiti cha urais. Tumengoja miaka 10, tulimpeleka Kibaki State House, akakaa akatulia, akakula nusu mkate na Raila. 2013 tukasimama na Raila. 2017 Kalonzo atosha.
That our party has a candidate for the presidency in 2017, and that candidate is Kalonzo Musyoka. We have given him the tools and the party legitimacy to go now and vote, for the candidacy.
They rallied Wiper branch party delegates at the cost to mobilize their supporters to enlist as voters in readiness for next year's elections. Meanwhile, a section of legislators from Kiambu County have called on the Inspector General of Police, Joseph Boinait, to take action against goons who attacked their convoy while celebrating the release of Kiambu blogger Waime Mburu.
Jeshi moja imepangwa iko Kuhedi wanaipwa. Jeshi ingine wako Kirigiti, ndio tukachukua Waime tukamleta. Jameni, wakati tulifika kwa entrance ya county government ya Kiambu, tukachapwa na mawe. Tukachapwa na mawe na vijana ambao tunajua, vijana ambao wanakuwa na kabogo kila siku. Vijana ambao wanafungulianga yeye milango.
If you are going into elections, we cannot afford to go into elections with people running militias in this country. And we want to tell the Inspector General of Police and the DPP, these Kiambu mafia and militia headed by William Kabogo must be disbanded. Lazima ivunjwe.
Tulijua kabisa hiyo ni kazi ya Kabogo. Kabogo ni criminal ya kawaida. Ile mkora ovyo. Wanatoa wapi? Hawa vijana, sisi watu ya Kiambu hatutaogopa hawa. You are just a petty criminal ambaye anatakiwa kuwa kwa jela.
Eric Biegon reporting for Channel 1 News.
And away from politics now, they say that the only disability in life is bad attitude, an idiom that Justice Mugendi, a resident of Thika Town in Kiambu County, appears to have held so dear. The 30-year-old DJ has won the hearts of many despite his condition that has seen him suffer ridicule from prospective employers.
We arrive at the home of 30-year-old Justice Mugendi located in Thika, Kiambu County. His is a story of a young man who has defied all odds to prove that disability is not inability. He has refused to give up his quest to become the best ever DJ despite his condition. According to Justice, life has never been a bed of roses, especially coming from a humble background that meant that his family could not afford the luxury of taking him to a music school. But he opted to learn the skills of DJing the hard way.
Hatukuwa na pesa mob, inaweza nipeleka course ya DJ. So ikabidi tu nikuwa naenda kwa club naambia wasee wacha nijaribu naangalia vile wanafanya na waambia wacha nijaribu, wananifukuza.
And after years of trial and error, Mugendi acquired the skills. but again could not afford a laptop and a DJ machine and was forced to start a small business.
Kaanza kufanya biashara kidogo kidogo, nikaanza kuuza tu movie, na nyumbani nilikuwa narisha tukuku. Kulisha tukuku, tukua tudogo na nanunua tukua tudogo, tukikuwa tukubwa nauza, na save, na kulimalima tusukuma. Mpaka ile siku nitapata pesa ya kununua mashini na laptop.
He started receiving invitations to perform in clubs and functions within Kiambu County, and months later Justus landed a job at a club in Nairobi.
Nikapata klabu moja, nikaenda kucheza kidogo. Ikakuja akakuja akaniambia sasa mimi niko mfupi sana, so sitaweza sifai kwa hiyo klabu, akanifukuza.
3 years later, after the business had flourished, Justus says he was shortchanged with his employer, replacing him without notice.
Sasa yule mwenye klabu alikuja akanipea leave. Kunipea leave, kurudi akaniambia ati job imekuja imeisha. Na kumbe alikuwa amepatia yule nilikuwa nimemfunza, ndiye alikuwa amechukua ile position yangu. Kutoka hapo nikatoka hapo, hiyo kazi kaisha hiyo.
Justus dreamed to find a job as a radio DJ and eventually become one of the best radio DJs in the country remains valid.
Mimi kusema kweli, mimi sababu niko na mashine zangu, si ati naweza penda kusaidiwa, hapana. Ile kitu naweza penda ni kazi tu. Kazi tu.
His story of resilience and hard work is a living example of a fresh disability is not inability. Ben Chumba, reporting for Channel 1 News Hour.
Indeed, he has a talent that all prospective employers out there can always exploit, proving disability is not inability. All right, and now let's focus on yet another story. And a family in Taita Taveta County has become the first county in Kenya to finalize its transition implementation plan for devolved forestry functions since the process to devolve forests began in 2014. Elsewhere, yet a member of parliament, Francis Mwangangi, has raised concerns over the slow pace of connecting public primary schools in remote regions to the national power grid. This and more stories in the County News Roundup.
Yet a member of parliament, Francis Mwangangi, has raised concern over the slow pace of connecting public primary schools in remote regions to the national power grid. According to Mwangangi, over 60 primary schools in his constituency are yet to be connected to electricity, despite the government promising to connect all primary schools in the county to power grid. Meanwhile, hundreds of boda riders operating in Rongai, Kajiado County, took to the streets to protest alleged harassment. The boda operators claim that some of their members are nursing life-threatening injuries inflicted by reckless matatu drivers. Rongai has at least 800 licensed boda operators. And a national outreach program to create awareness on the existence and treatment options for fistula is set for June 2016. The free medical camp to be held at the Kenyatta National Hospital comes amid statistics that indicate cases of fistula have significantly dropped, with more women able to access treatment. Meanwhile, a family in Mombasa County is appealing on well-wishers to come to their aid and assist them offset a huge medical bill incurred by their 28-year-old son. Harris Sonamani Shauri has been fighting for his dear life at the Mombasa hospital after he suffered a massive head trauma following an attack by a notorious gang operating in the area. Finally, MP Shah Hospital has launched a brand new cardiac center focused towards improving lifestyle diseases related to heart, like hypertension, the first of its kind in East and Central Africa. Speaking at the launch, Dr. Shamir Barnard said this will help in reducing the number of Kenyans heading to India after suffering cardiac complications.
We're happy to have this facility here. We can go to the cath labs and be able to diagnose some of those complex diseases and will be able to offer treatment to the patients. The facility will also help in other areas, our other related specialties, brain diseases, study of the vessels and so on. So we have all that equipment in place, and we'll be able to partner with other specialties apart from cardiology so that we use the facility to treat those diseases.
And elsewhere, a family in Murang'a County is in mental anguish over the fate of their 9-year-old girl who is suffering from a rare medical condition. The family had raised a child who bears both male and female sex organs as a girl, but she has now developed masculine features. Nisma Shigadi with the story.
Deep inside the sleepy Makombi village in Kingumo constituency lives a family of 3 living in abject poverty. Theirs has been anguish as they battle to come to terms with a rare biological condition that has left them confused over the sex of their baby. The family of one Daniel Mburu, a single parent, has been living in anguish for the last 9 years after her wife gave birth to a baby whom they opted to raise as a girl despite bearing both male and female sex organs.
Chukua hatua tukaenda hospitali kadhaa na baadaye tukapata result ambazo zilisema ni kijana. Nimekuwa tukimfalisha nguo za msichana juu kijana na sisi tunafikiria ni msichana.
Baba ya huyu mtoto waliweza kuachana kitambo na bibi yake wakati walipozaa mtoto ambaye alikuwa na shida katika hali zake za kuweza kujulikana kama ni msichana ama ni mvulana, na kwa hivyo bibi yake akamtoroka na akamwachia huu mzigo wa kulea watoto 3.
The plight of the family worsened after the wife fled, leaving the children in the care of the mentally challenged father. According to the boy's uncle, Simon Onaina, the child has been having difficulties interacting with other kids of her age as the stigma of either being a boy or a girl weighs heavily on her while at school, forcing her to isolate herself.
Nikiwa shule napenda mchezo wa kupiga mpira na kukimbizana. Nacheza na doli.
A confusion that has left the young girl in a social dilemma. Area Chief Gibson Kimani says that the child needs counseling to help her approach puberty with clarity.
Naomba wasanii wote wawe na hali ambayo ni ya kusaidia huyu mtoto, sababu familia anahitaji kwa haraka sana matibabu ili aweze kujijua hali zake kama ni msichana ama ni mvulana.
Dr. Frederick Mbugwa, a gynecologist operating in Murang'a County, says the girl, who is referred to as in medical terms as hermaphrodite, should have undergone corrective surgery. The family is now seeking help from well-wishers to help raise funds for the medical procedure.
Indeed, must be a very trying time for the family, very confusing indeed. Well, we take a short break on Channel 1 Weekend, but when we come back, we will be moving over to the sports news.
The 2016 Sport Pesa Festival live on stage will be Hata Band, Gravity, Prof, Abbas, Kolo, Reda Capella, Femi One, Just a Band, Della, King Kaka, Wangeshi, Fena, Kagwe, Sauti Soul, MDQ, Calligraph Jones, Wairi, Chwakali, Sana, Timmy T. Dot, Matrax, Mr. Lenny, Nameless, Redson, Christoph, Gabu, Yvonne Dak, Nonini. The 2016 Sport Pesa Festival made of winners. 30th January at the Nyayo Stadium from 2 p.m. till late. Tickets available at all Chumi supermarkets. 500 bob regular and 2,000 VIP. Terms and conditions apply.
Umefuata nini hapa?
Wewe maswali yako mbona hayaishi?
Nataka kukuambia mimi nakaa ghorofa ya juu.
Unakuja kwangu ili ukae bure tu na mimi ndio niwe yaya wako. Ai! Toka.
Siwezi kuondoka.
Kwani shewa anampa mshahara? Ni mimi au yeye anampa mshahara?
Upuzi gani wanafanya? Ondokeni sasa hivi, sitaki hata kuwaona.
Hivi wewe ni mwanamke wa namna gani wewe?
Unajua nini wewe?
Nani anaweza
Unajua
kuishi
nini
na
wewe
wewe
kweli?
milele?
Unajua kweli?
Gaming has just reached a whole new level with M-Cheza. For a chance to win big, SMS Cheza to 29888 to register and place your bet on over 277 football leagues across the globe. And now, introducing the M-Cheza jackpot of 10 million Kenya shillings. Register now and play by sending the word Cheza to 29888. M-Cheza, put your money where your mouth is. Powered by Intralot, a global leader in gaming. Terms and conditions apply.
Don't drink untreated water. It can cause cholera. The water may be contaminated with sewage, hence unsafe to drink. Use aqua taps or boil the water before drinking. The National Disaster Operations Center has put up an action plan for the long rains expected in the months of March, April and May that will ensure adequate preparations to face the challenges expected.
Sports news brought to you by M-Cheza. For your chance to win big, SMS Cheza to 29888. M-Cheza, put your money where your mouth is.
Chance to win big? SMS Cheza to 29888 to register and put your money on your team. M-Cheza, put your money where your mouth is. Powered by Intralot, a global leader in gaming. Terms and conditions apply.
Very well, let's play. And now the national sevens rugby team, Shujaa, today collected 10 points in the third round of the HSBC IRB Sevens World Series in Wellington, New Zealand, and now lie 8th in the series standings. Kenya was relegated to the plate semis after losing their main cup quarter-final match 36-0 to defending champions New Zealand, but they were also beaten 35-14 by Argentina. New Zealand went on to retain their Wellington Sevens title, beating South Africa 24-21 in a tightly contested final at the Westpac Stadium. Fiji won the bronze after defeating England 24-12, while Australia beat Argentina 21-5 to win plate final matches. Shujaa now heads straight to Sydney, Australia to take part in the fourth round of the World Series set to be held next weekend. South Africa is still perched at the top of the standings on 54 points, 2 ahead of second-placed Fiji. New Zealand is third with 47 points. And elsewhere, Mali have joined DRC, Congo and Ivory Coast in the semi-finals of 2016 African Nations Cup after beating Tunisia 2-1 in the quarter-final match in Kigali, Rwanda. Tunisia looked destined for the semi-finals in the first half when Mohamed Ali Manse put them ahead in the 14th minute. But their hopes of playing in the semis never lasted when Mali leveled the scoreline through Aliou Dieng's penalty in the 71st minute before Abdoulaye Diatare netted the final for Mali in the 80th minute. Mali will now face Zambia or Guinea in the semi-final set to start on the 3rd of next month. The tournament is a continental championship for home-based players. The 2014 winners, Libya and runners-up Ghana, both failed to qualify for this edition. One of the main aims of the tournament is to give those who play in their own domestic leagues a chance to showcase their talent internationally. And now to another story. Moto multiplier motocross champion Shivam Vinayak made a triumphant comeback after a 2-year hiatus, winning the MX1 category during the opening round of the 2016 Kenya motocross season at Jamhuri Racetrack. Now Shivam, who had taken a break to concentrate on his university studies, registered a total of 40 points and relegated Mikilai Berman and Tutu Maina to second and third positions respectively. Payden Amos was the champion in the newly introduced youngsters category, the Pee-wee class, coming home and fastest ahead of Trey Ghana and Muchoki Waweru, who wound up in positions 2 and 3 respectively. The 50cc category was won by Kit Ghana, who accumulated a total of 60 points. Andrew Ohonde and Atete Bwenzige were placed second and third respectively.
Sports News, brought to you by M-Cheza. For your chance to win big, SMS Cheza to 2988. M-Cheza, put your money where your mouth is.
Chance to win big? SMS Cheza to 29888 to register and put your money on your team. M-Cheza, put your money where your mouth is. Powered by Intralot, a global leader in gaming. Terms and conditions apply.
Indeed, you are watching Channel 1 Weekend. It's time for us to cruise once again to John Jacob Curia on the other side of the studio. A topic of discussion on family matters, matters that touch on your child, difference between child abuse, neglect, and where indeed do you draw the line. So we will be getting back to him and his panel of guests to find out what more they have in store for us. But from me, I'm signing out at this point. To enjoy the rest of your viewing, my name is Kathy Nachenga. Good night. Over to you now, John.
Thanks very much, Catherine, of course, for the perfect work at that other end of studio and updating the nation on what has been happening in the political, social, and perhaps even in the economic front. Welcome back to the last bit of Family Matters, and we have to do this quickly because there's a lot of things to talk about, yet time is always this constraints. But then perhaps to pick up from Elizabeth's story, Dr. Muli picks you. Where does Dr. Muli take you, and how does he help you overcome the challenges you've gone through all this time?
So before I go to where he took me, let me go back to where I'm in his hands.
Yeah.
And this is the first time someone is showing me love in a long time. But I had stayed in juvenile for 1 year, and the damage had been done. I wouldn't tell it by then, but this is the first time someone is showing me love, and I'm in his arms crying, but I'm still suspicious. I'm thinking, dude, I know how this goes, so let's just skip to the part where you start hurting me or make me feel bad about myself, or, you know, let's not do this new style thing you're bringing. And even after he took me to his home, there's zero trust in me. I cannot trust him. I am meeting other people who've gone through similar situations, kids like me. They're more loving, you know, someone is giving me a warm bath, I'm given fresh clothes. All this, I can't believe it. I'm still thinking, you can't do this to me. You know, why are you taking me through this then so that you dump me and make me feel worse? And as young as 6 years, I'm attempting suicide. And the damage that it happened to me in 1 year, it's affected me for almost a lifetime, because now I'm not trusting anyone. I've become very defensive. So that makes you antisocial, because every time someone is talking to you, you're just defensive, you want to keep away, you cannot interact well with others.
And you're suspicious about them.
Yes, you can't even build for yourself future plans, because you're thinking, I am doomed to fail, I'm doomed to go through, you know, I'm those unlucky people. All this has already happened. And so Muli is trying to understand me and help me out. The reason Muli succeeded was because how his children's home are based in a family way. It's not that he's the director of the home and he's the father and he's the mother, and that's it. All of you are brothers and sisters. And so that kinda helped. And in as much as is that good, it's some of the part of the damage that was done then. Until today, I still suffer some, you know, like I would still take a while before I trust someone, no matter how genuine you are, because there's something at the back of me that makes you not. And then I was sexually abused at the age of 4. I was physically abused for a long time, and emotionally I'm just damaged goods. I mean, for you to build up someone to ever, you know, just be themselves, it took a while.
And somebody to deal with you has to be patient.
You need more than patience. You need grace. Patience can't handle it.
I'm afraid already.
And so how Muli succeeded is, he is a godly man, so yes, he has grace, but also he knew that we have all these issues. And the good bit is, first he tried to understand me, who I am, because everyone has their own weaknesses. Just because I have been having all this trouble, my current solution is not food and clothing and shelter. There is damage that has happened to me beyond the physical. And so now that is the aspect he tried to come in. Every time I would attempt suicide, he would try and bring me close.
Even when you're with Dr. Muli, you're still attempting suicide?
3 times. I'm still young. I'm not even 10 years yet.
Yeah.
And what I know is at that moment, I know the only thing I wanted in life was to die, because that looked like the best solution for me, to solve everything. But he started instilling, you know, those positive things in me and saying positive things to me. And he even made it a point to make it a thing that he has to do every day, twice a day. Not just to me, of course, to the rest of the people, but he would also personalize some messages to just you and make sure, you know, when you say something and it gets instilled in someone, there is a way they can start to believe in themselves. Parents have this thing where you don't think you're abusing a child because they've done a mistake and you think shouting at them is discipline. That is not discipline. It actually makes someone, whenever someone does a mistake and you scold them for it, they will never tell you they have done it. They learn to hide things. They learn to be secretive.
There's no open environment for you to have a conversation with
Now,
the kid.
Molly made us know everyone is not perfect, him included, his children, biological children included. If you think you've done something wrong, just say it. Just, you know, be yourself. It's not a prison. It's not a home. Even before he would punish us, of course we got punished. Trust me, we got punished. But even before he would punish us, we would have this kind of discussion where he explains to you the mistake you have done and why you need to be punished.
And why you need to be
And it
beaten.
will be very, you know, this very lovingly, like if you're crying, you're thinking, why am I crying? I mean, because between whatever punishment you're going through, there's this 30 minutes of talk, and it's not that harsh talk. It's those, you know, those nice talks you would have over tea or something.
A one-on-one, bosom conversation.
Yes.
All right, we'll be getting to the point of which you decided now to overcome this and go beyond that. But then,
Yes.
I agree. The last report done on child abuse and neglect is 2010. 5 years later, even the government has not bothered to put its house in order and get the statistics on how the children are faring. But then, the many cases that have gone reported on media, KBC leading, of course, and of course the other cases that have not been reported. In your own estimation as an expert, are the cases on the rise, or is there anything perhaps that has been done in between these 5 years to bring the number down?
I know the report came out in the year 2012, and the statistics that were published in that report are really worrisome, because in that publication, it indicates that about 66% of children reported that they were abused when they were below 18 years. And this one was cross-cutting, either physically, emotionally, or sexually. But again, just like her case, only 10% received the necessary services, support that was supposed to be given to them. Like in her case, she was supposed to be given counseling, nothing happened. She was supposed to be taken care of medically, nothing happened. Of course, there were legal issues that was bogged because the perpetrator was left without being arrested, something like that. So from 2012 to now, the statistics keeps on going on. We keep on hearing cases in the media, and also there are those that doesn't appear in the media also, of children being sexually abused at home with their relatives, in the community, like what happened to her. In the schools, we've had teachers sexually abusing children. So every day a day doesn't end without a child us not hearing cases of children being abused.
All right.
So the cases are going
They are on the rise.
Yes.
When you look at how the law deals with the perpetrators of this violence or neglecting children, vis-a-vis how even the cogs of justice are running if you were to take that some other person to court, do you feel like there's a deficiency in terms of legislation, in terms of dealing with these things?
I want to point out from the outset that Kenya is one of those countries that have the best legislations around. We have the best legislations, we have the best policies, we have the best action plans on how to protect children. The problem is when it comes to implementing the same. So our biggest deficiency is enforcement. So like in a case, it was reported, no action was done. There are coordination of also child protection actors, both state and non-state actors. They are not well coordinated, and you can see from Elizabeth's story that no response took place. So I can say that we have the best legislations, but the biggest problem that we are having is implementation. We have international conventions that have been adopted and domesticated into our laws. For the first time ever in this constitution that we have, issues of children are there. They have been captured. We have the Children Act that takes care of all issues with children. We have Sexual Offences Act that can still go to. We have Trafficking in Persons Act that just got legislated in the year 2010, just before Kibaki went out. So we can say that we have the best legislations.
But then enforcement is all the problem.
The biggest
And we'll
problem.
talk about that later. Jack, as a father, and I want you to speak to parents out there, because there's this tendency of telling a kid, like he said, and particularly abusing them emotionally, hey, you're stupid, that's not how you do, you know?
Look like your mother.
You look like your mother. And I mean, there's questions of who have you taken after? I don't get it. What effect does it have on a kid?
It actually puts the child at a point whereby they are embarrassed, they are ashamed, and it breaks down their self-esteem. And that alone is a disservice to the child.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the child grows up feeling as though they're not worthy of being termed as a human being. You're bringing them down to a point whereby you can just throw them out and just raise your voice at them. One of the things that we do as parents, what my wife and I have done is that as they grow up, we actually advocated corporate punishment, but not the destructive sense whereby the child is senselessly beaten and has to now ends up being either broken limbs and that sort of a thing.
How would you do it? Hit the knuckles with a spoon?
Not at all. No. No.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, we did the corporate punishment whereby you use the rod on the bumps. Excuse my French, but up to a certain age.
Fine.
Because what we did is that by the time they reached their teens, we started withdrawing privileges from them.
The privileges?
Yes, because by the time they're teenage age, that's the time now they're actually a tinker bomb into becoming destructive.
Yeah.
So you have to now start discussing with them, but you still met out punishment. That means you either withdraw allowances from them, you withdraw the phones if they have cell phones, you withdraw the TV time, or you even ground them because that's the time they really want to hang out with their pals.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things that we have taken as an advantage being having married early, is that we grew up with them. So we are also hip, so to speak.
Yeah. Is there a point at which, referring back to the question that we had, is there a point where you realize weaknesses in your child and as a father, you can work with that kid to help them understand their weakness, but then know that there is also strength that they have?
Yes. In fact, that brings a very interesting angle to our situation. I'm impatient by nature, personally.
You don't look like you are.
Don't let looks deceive you.
Oh yeah, they did.
And one of the things is that when they were not able, sometimes they're struggling with a concept, homework.
Yeah.
And the concepts, you're grasping them, and they're not grasping them. It's some of the things I've had to struggle also, whereby I don't met out my impatience on them and then leave them hanging dry. I've been grateful to have a wife who's been also able to encourage me to be a good father and not drop the ball on bringing them up. So that the instances, and every child has a different talent, and they are gifted in different ways. Two of our children are gifted sports-wise. The other two tend to go towards the academic side. But end of the day,
there's no temptation to tell them, "Guy, go back to your books.
No.
You will play football later."
Not at all. If anything, we have asked them to choose their career. It will be their livelihood. We will not be there hand-holding them until they are in their 30s.
All right. Terry, there's a thin line between crossing the line when you're disciplining the kid and, the discipline and crossing the line. There's that bit of crossing the line. There's that thin line. How, as a parent, do you balance and ensure that, again, as you discipline your kid, one, you don't cross the line, and again, in the fear of crossing the line, that you don't leave your kid, to become naughty?
It's very easy to forget at the spur of the moment when you're doing the punishment, because at times could be caught between misunderstanding between you and your husband, and then disciplining the child at that time. Somehow, coincidentally, or is it unfortunately, it happens that the child misbehaves.
Yeah.
So at the spur of the moment, you might just hit the child. Sometimes you may exceed that punishment.
Yeah.
And then you realize you overdid it. So I would...
Do you apologize?
Yes. What I would say is this. It's good to realize when you're doing it, what you're feeling at that time. Because you're actually meeting out your frustration and your misunderstanding, what you're feeling. Probably your husband was angry at you, and now you're removing it on the child. So it's good to just take a step back and ask yourself, okay, why am I doing this? Fine, the child has done that. but I also need to be in control. Okay. Before you do anything, it's you to take charge of yourself and your emotions. I usually say this, mothers have this extra instinct that God has given them to be able to do so many things. Number one is to master your emotions. Okay, guard your heart. Because when you do that, that comes when you give your heart to God, you give yourself to God. He guides you, He directs you, because sometimes you have no clue, because every step is a new thing.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Fantastic. As we wind up, because I'm under pressure to wind up this conversation, but then, you know, having struggled all this long, Elizabeth, at what point do you say, I'm done with this life, I want to close this chapter and open a new one and stop being the new being that Dr. Muli is fashioning me to become?
Before I answer that, you talked about legislation and you said you have the best legislation. I don't agree with him 100%. If a kid is emotionally abused, where do they report that, and where is the evidence for that to be handled? Even sexual abuse, unless it's fresh, like it's now and the kid is bleeding, those are cases that are hard to win. Like, that is why people don't even report, because you look at it, you will go to court, this kid will be exposed.
And you had the kid intentionally, and you go say it was accidental.
Yes. And so I think we need to do more on the legislation. So I decided to change my life around. It took around 15 years for me to do that, because one, you have to realize, one, when a child is abused or neglected, there is zero self-esteem. So Mr. Muli had tried to instill that in me and keep making me know that I am a better person and bring the best out of me. And he would actually make sure that I know other people also see that in me. So he would take me out whenever he's going to preach or meet other kids, and I would see that other people actually have it worse than I do. And so at one point I had to actually tell myself that it is up to me if I want to be something better. It has to be from me. It has to be a decision from me.
It's a motivation you have to have within yourself.
I didn't even need to be motivated. I needed to be determined, because sometimes you don't have people cheering for you. You have to be your own cheerleader. Like, look beyond all the factors that you have to. Like, for example, none of my relatives has ever come forth. So it's not like I will look forward to a day I'll reunite
Up
with
to
them.
date?
Yes.
None?
None. So you have to be determined.
Would you
look
like to meet them?
beyond. I'm not sure. Look beyond, you know, your circumstances, because not everyone is lucky to have a Mr. Muli, not everyone is lucky, but you have to be willing from inside to want to have something and actually work towards it. Put a little effort, more determination, and eventually it will be successful.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Very good. Agre, you've been challenged on the point of legislation, and so perhaps it's something you need to address. But again, most importantly, the way forward.
The way forward.
The way forward.
Yeah, one thing I want to agree with her, that we are not 100% where we are supposed to be. But now when it comes to the kind of statistics that we are having and the kind of legislations that we have, I think the statistics should be down. So that was my point.
Do you have an open office where, let's say, a kid who has been molested, let's say a kid who has been abused or neglected, can come physically, or even a parent who is having such a case perhaps come and report to your officers?
Yeah, sure. So I work with ANCAN Regional Office. So ANCAN basically is African Network for Prevention and Protection Against Child Abuse and Neglect. So we are based at just 3 minutes walk from Yaya Center, and we have different programs to deal with this kind of issues. So we even involve children themselves. So we have a child participation program. We have a violence against children program. We have the program that I say that I manage, program against child trafficking and sexual exploitation. So we have a number of services that we offer to children. We have professionals, from those who can offer legal aid. We have counselors.
So you can give legal aid where this matter can be pursued in court through your intervention.
But again, we also work with other non-governmental organizations like Childline Kenya, and she mentioned that how do you report cases of abuse? So one thing, we have the helpline, which is toll-free, 116. You just make a phone call, so long as you have
116.
And you'll get hold of services.
Fantastic. The way forward. I still have that opportunity for you. The way forward.
Yeah, so the way forward first is the community. We want everybody not to look at the government or to look at the NGOs to come and sort out issues to do with child abuse at the community level. So we want to be responsible. Just like we have this couple here. They are fantastic couples. And if people can emulate them, then we think that issues to do with abuses will be going down. And they mentioned very rightly that we need to understand our children so that we understand where they are coming from, so that we can be able to correct them. And again, also issue of even other community actors at the community level. So people need to start seeing that just the way it was in the past. Children are responsibility of everyone.
It's a society of see no evil, hear no evil, do no evil. Jack?
Well, what I can say is that just going in, taking the cue of the government saying that there's nyumba kumi, that's for security. There's also, there has to be nyumba kumi for the family.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, it's pointless to hear you're sitting in your house comfortable doing your thing and the child out there is screaming and you're not concerned. That disturbs. It's very disturbing, and we as parents, we need to really get on with the job.
Animals perhaps are even better than we are as human beings. I mean, you're hearing a scream down, plot number 10 or whatever that is, and you still can't respond.
It's very unfortunate, and it is a reality. It does happen.
Yeah.
But I still challenge the parents out there. It's a joyous job bringing up the children, especially when you see them being born, growing up from being toddlers, raising up through the stakes, going into their teenage lives and into being young adults. It's a joy. I mean, my wife and I are really, really privileged to actually have been in this panel and to share what we are going through.
Fantastic. I will call you again. We're not done with children. Go ahead.
I'll just say this. Most of the children didn't ask to be born. Okay. But much as you're given a chance by your parent, give the same chance to that child. It took love to bring forth this child, so nurture that child with love. Sometimes it's so difficult in the world we are living in, with the pressures and everything. I'll just say this, God comes first.
Yeah.
When you give yourself to God, because every day is a learning day, is a learning experience. You have no clue. And as the child is growing, it's a different stage from toddlerhood, teenage, adulthood, and all that. Just give yourself, dedicate them to God, ask God for guidance, and the word of God is there to give it. Okay, so the long and short of it is, let's give ourselves to God, let's trust in Him, and ask Him for guidance and wisdom.
All right.
That way you'll never fail.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Terry and Jack, and of course, Agri Otieno and Elizabeth for gracing our panel tonight. And of course, having that conversation, it's very interesting, and I'm sure we'll still have this conversation on another day because it's not a topic you can wind up in this, minutes that we have around this time. But thanks very much for your input. God bless you again, and I definitely have feedback a lot, particularly on Twitter. But then I'm thinking all those proposals that are being encompassed here by people tweeting, implement them. Don't just tweet. Implement them and ensure that children out there are safe. But on Family Matters, somebody says, I will not mention their name, says they have been abused sexually, emotionally, physically, etc. And still, they think they need help. They're suffering depression. Agree? You can contact that lady, huh?
Yeah, sure.
Fantastic. Family Matters, ask Elizabeth if she's married or not. If not, somebody's interested. Family Matters, the person, somebody says, of course, all these people, again, are sympathizing with the case of Elizabeth, are sympathizing, of course, with other cases out there. But I'm really hoping, again, for some of these people, you will get to them and try and help them in one way or another. Thanks very much for participating on Family Matters in the very best ways you can. But then again, I'm being reminded here by Linus Moshigadi that the number for Paul Mwangi, who was to get medical help, particularly for that cancerous tumor in the mouth, the account number is 01109104747 300. The number again is 01109104747 300. The pay bill number is 400200. 400200. Thanks very much. God bless you. Have a good night. See you on Family Matters next Sunday. But of course, tomorrow we're still doing News Hour. So keep it KBC Channel 1 and enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good night.
These stories in Kenya